Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Sonic.
And thank you for joining us this morning. Shaking off a wet weekend with a wet Monday.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining.
Definitely cool things down. And of course, we're going to be finding out just how long these showers are going to be sticking around when we get into our weather in just a few.
When we look at the summer months, Marlene, rain and shine come along with everything that goes with summer, right?
That's right.
So we take it in stride. I'm not the least bit worried or complaining about the rains over the past few days.
Yeah. I think it may actually be, you know, there's the Met Service will be able to tell us, but they have a number of days or a number of inches that they collect to say it's the official start of the rainy season. We can check in with them about that, but you're right. It's either rain or heat. That's what we get around this time of year. But we're going to start off our day with some motivation, and that means it's time for our Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Keeping a collection of magical items is a great way to reflect and be inspired. Though the universe as a whole is imbued with an undeniable aura of magic, we can further fill our lives with magic by creating a collection of magical things. More than simply being beautiful, such objects can potentially play an active role in the shaping of our experience, as each magical object serves a unique and multifaceted purpose. Some inspire us to reflect, while some have the power to positively influence our mood. Others take us back in time, capturing in their essence memories locked in history, or helping us reaffirm our connection with the universe. Magical objects can be found almost anywhere, and can be practically anything, from gifts of nature to man-made artifacts. You'll know an object is truly magical when it touches you, awakening some primal part of yourself that is more profoundly connected to the ether. Our lives are made just a little more light and fun when having magical things in our presence.
This takes me back to my childhood.
Really?
And, you know, being able to go on trips with my parents and my family. In the sense that if we go hiking, I recall, you know, looking out for unique objects like stones, like stones that you wouldn't really typically see in a city setting, so to speak, right? Or perhaps like visiting Hopkins as a child, picking up seashells or driftwood and having them at home and sort of looking at them and reflecting on some of the memories of that particular vacation, right? But as an adult, there are certain objects in my house that kind of have a significant meaning to me, in the sense that when I look at it for a sense of calm or peace of mind, right? So it transcends the idea of collecting stones and seashells and what have you, but having one particular piece that stands out in such a way. For me, it's either a piece of art, like a painting, or there's a globe inside the living room that I often look at and say, you know what, this is something that kind of, you know, brings the mood down. If I'm either exhausted mentally from work or things that I'm doing, or, you know, I just want to be able to relax, I look at that and it brings about that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You know, when the eye opener started talking about magical things, I know, you know, some people may tune it out and be too literal with it. But we all have things that carry a level of significance for us. And we hold them close, or we put them on a shelf, or we give it a premier spot in your office or in your house. Sometimes you may wear something that carries significant meaning. And that's because it very often, if you allow it to, can trigger, whether it's a memory of how you felt when you got it, or what associations you built with it. And, you know, that's something for me, I think is always helpful. You know, when you have these little reminders around you, especially if you know you're going to need them to tap into that emotion, that memory, that feeling, or just take you back to a time that makes you say, as you said, kind of just change the energy of the moment. Those are so significant to have around. I think it's a great way, you know, to kind of set up your own space.
It's a good eye opener. I mean, at first when you were reading it, I was thinking, well, magic. I can't be that literal in my interpretation of what is being said. So my mind just went on, you know, things that I used to collect as a child.
And sometimes it's really strange things. You know, I've found friends who have like very odd mementos, and you're like, well, why would that even be in your
What's
home?
the importance of that to you?
And for them, it's extremely significant. Maybe it's driftwood or a stone or, you know, whatever. But yeah, definitely something we can all connect with. But moving from our conversation about our eye opener to our weather update, and finding out how much showers will be oh, there we go. We have Catherine Cumberbatch on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Marlene and Sunny. Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm here doing the government work.
All right. Well, we appreciate that, and tell us about our weather for today.
Okay, Marlene and Sunny, as you know, from over the weekend, the weather has been quite moist and unstable, and we don't expect any significant change in the weather for the next few days. We'll be continuing to having cloudy skies with a few showers and isolated thunderstorms during the daytime, and as the day progresses, these activity dissipate out, and they return increase during the night time. As we look at our Doppler radar now, we see that most of the activity is offshore beliefs. It is just offshore beliefs, and as I said, we expect this activity to increase again tonight, and will affect mainly the coastal areas and up north during the night time, and then in the morning they just dissipate out and increase again. So that is basically what the next 24 to 48 hours will be looking like. The activity at nighttime, early morning, dissipate out by afternoon, and then increase again during the nighttime. As for temperatures, because it's raining and it's wet, we don't expect any significant high temperatures for today. We are going for 84 along the coast, 86 inland, and 76 in the hills. And low temperatures for tonight will drop to 78 along the coast, 22 inland, and 68 in the hills. So basically, for the next 24 to 48 hours, expect moist and unstable conditions to continue to prevail. And now for the tropical weather outlook for the North Atlantic, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico, no tropical cyclone formation is expected over the next 48 hours. And that's it, Marlene and Isani. Good morning forecast.
There's a flood warning, or flood watch, I should say.
Yes, we have a flood watch for for flood-prone and low-lying areas. As you know, some parts of our country are very low and subjected to flooding. So, with the rainfalls that we are having every day, we expect localized floods occurring in these areas.
Does this mean that this is the start of our rainy season?
Well, yes, I think the rainy season has started. That's right.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for that update.
Okay, then. You guys have a great day and stay safe.
You too.
Bye-bye.
So it's official. We're in the rainy season.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think Catherine gave us a great opportunity to understand what we can expect. So if you do have some outdoor work to do or some activity outdoor, You want to time it right because the showers are coming early morning, nighttime, and a bit later in the evening as well. So you're looking at some periods of dryness, but the rain will return at least for the next 2 days.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. But you know what? The rain didn't damper all the celebrations this weekend. We are officially in graduation season,
Yes,
and I have to say, it's a great feeling seeing parents and students talk about the accomplishment of reaching this milestone. We live within a school area, so we've been hearing the pomp and circumstance while they practice. It's a great, speaking of significant things, that music alone kind of takes you back to your own time in school.
The graduation song?
Yeah. And so we want to say congratulations to all the graduates out there, to you, your families, and everyone who put in the hard work to get there. Yeah. We had the Independence High School graduation yesterday on Channel 5. It's interesting when you think of it to see how we are now at the point where they're more in-person graduations. They've changed quite a bit. In some schools, they have the graduates, instead of sitting together, sitting along with their families at a table. If they're doing in person, some are doing drive-by. There's still the virtual graduation as well, but there's more contact with them being able to go in and get their diploma and have that moment.
I wonder what it's like for persons or students who have graduated within the past 2 years under these different set of guidelines, if I may, from when we were in school, and graduation for us was way more traditional in the sense that for us, we for me, it was at the SJC gym where you have hundreds of family members and friends come out to celebrate that achievement with you. And so that was like the highlight of your 4th form or your 6th form years, right? And for many years, it was just that same way. I mean, that's a tradition of graduating. And now with the pandemic that has sort of forced us to do things differently, you have a completely new set of rules that sort of dictate how you go about commencing. I wonder what that's like for those students.
We've talked about it on the show, and I think that it's interesting because we are using Orleans. We know what traditional senior year is like, especially for high schoolers, which is one of the significant graduations taking place. And for them, they grew up with the expectation of it. I think 2021, perhaps the class of 2021 has it a bit better than class of 2020. Class of 2020 was just blindsided. They had no idea that all our lives would be just turned upside down the way it was. Class of 2021, at least had a year to adjust to know that this may be a reality, and in fact, it turned out to be their reality. But without a doubt, imagine years from now, you see you graduated in 2020 or 2021, automatically people will know the circumstances that you went to school and completed school. So they're a part of a historical element to the pandemic that we're living in.
We'll reflect on it and say those are the COVID years.
Yes, exactly. But also, there's some great lessons that they've learned here too. They've learned to adapt to online learning. They've learned to, manage their time and be able to complete their assignments in a new way. They completely learned a new way of learning within the past year and a half. And so there are takeaways when I look at it from the outside that maybe they don't accept or acknowledge or appreciate right now, but later on they will. The resilience, the grit, and then of course just being a part of such a unique experience in our history.
It's quite an adjustment to make, though.
All right, but that is our weather update. And again, congratulations to all the graduates across the country. We do hope that you get the chance to celebrate with your family and acknowledge the achievement that you have completed. But we're going to get moving into Eye on the News now and find out what are the big stories coming up this week and out of the weekend.
So on Saturday, the Belize Police Department bade farewell to one of their own, a fallen colleague of theirs. Superintendent Henry Jamot was laid to rest in Dangriga on Saturday, and the send-off was fitting for an officer of his stature within the department in terms of the formalities, the full pomp and circumstances that were afforded to Mr. Jamot. As we see there, that was the funeral service being held in his hometown of Dangriga. And as we know, those of us who either streamed or watched the stream, should I say, would know that the eulogy was delivered by a very, very close friend of his, a close friend of ours here at Channel 5 as well. Chef Sean Quillen delivered the eulogy for his friend. The department, in terms of the turnout, this was a full house in terms of officers who traveled down south to be able to send off Mr. Jamot. As we see as well, this was a full Garifuna celebration of life as well in terms of the mass and how it is being celebrated, right? So that was on Saturday. We know that this was preceded by a wake the night before as well. And it's safe to say that Dangriga really came out in terms of being able to remember Henry Jamot as one of their own. Right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, and I'm sure viewers are asking the same question, the wake has been a subject of much debate. Well, there's not much of a debate. There have been concerns of the lack of adherence to COVID protocols, as we see people without masks, no social distancing, and larger numbers. The commissioner, in fact, has responded to the public's concerns on this issue and has clarified that when he was made aware of what was happening at the wake, he issued a notice for it to be closed down. So that's an important update there. But of course, it was a celebration of family, friends, and colleagues. We also know that some government representatives were there as well to say farewell to the late Superintendent Henry Jamot.
So that was the first thing that I wanted to touch on this morning. The other is the donation of 100,000 AstraZeneca doses to Belize in our continued campaign to get as many Belizeans vaccinated. Right? And this came from the government of Mexico as a donation to the government of Belize via the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The campaign, as I mentioned, is ongoing, and I would want to take this opportunity as well to remind Belizeans of the importance of being vaccinated. For the past 2 years, we've been dealing with COVID as a novel disease that has been plaguing us as a pandemic, right? And so we just want to remind people that, you need to get vaccinated. If you're in a particular class or group or what have you, it's all the more important that you do so. I am getting my second shot today as well. The time between the first shot and the second has elapsed, and so I am also making that effort to be fully vaccinated.
It is a wonderful feeling to know when you've completed your vaccination. I received mine last week. I'm still on that 2-week period where you have to wait for the full effect to kick in. But we do encourage people. 100,000 doses will allow for at least 50,000 more people to be included. We have noted that there has been a reduction in the number of people who are coming out to get vaccinated daily versus the numbers we saw early on in March when the vaccination rollout started. And I know there's a lot of hesitation that people may be feeling, but we must not, lose sight of the fact that we all have a role to play. We've been asked to follow protocols for since the start of March, and at this time now we're being asked to take the vaccination so that we can move out of the pandemic. the only way things return to whatever normal will be is when we do have sufficient people vaccinated in the country. And we're not there yet, and we're not close as yet. So it is important that we keep on encouraging people to get vaccinated.
We also acknowledge that in the tourism sector, persons who are preparing to return to work for when the cruise ships begin to sail and arrive on our shores, that they will be vaccinated as well. I think it's a requirement from what I've been made to understand that persons who will be working in the tourism industry, cruise tourism particularly, will need to be vaccinated for them to be able to interact with the visitors as they arrive.
Okay, so there we have the Friday vaccination report. It actually went back up, so that's fantastic news to see. It was, last week it was about 500, 600, and Minister Shabat said it was hovering somewhere around 5 to 8, and we had 13 on Friday. So that's great news, and we really hope we can keep it up. Total fully vaccinated persons at 16,000. Definitely need a lot more than that. And these new doses that came in, I imagine will allow for the expansion of the phases as well. There are people who are in phase 4 and 5 who want to get the vaccine, but they're not allowed to as yet because the priority is given to the high-risk groups and the highly exposed groups. So, you know, like we said, take advantage of the opportunity. And speaking of COVID, the protocols or the regulations the curfew has been extended.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's part of the entire response to the pandemic situation, at least on the part of the government of Belize, in terms of being able to look at the regulations that are currently in place and being able to either extend, relax, or address it accordingly.
So the extension for another 30 days, it goes from, the biggest change is really just that the end of the curfew is a bit earlier. So Sunday to Wednesday, it's 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. and Thursday to Saturday, it's midnight to 4 a.m.
So there we have it. And so we conclude our island news this morning. Again, viewers, you can catch our full newscast at 6 o'clock, where we'll have these stories and more to share with you. If you can't sit in front of your television, then you can certainly stream our content on Facebook.
All right, and it's time for us to get moving into our show for today.
Our show for today, we have several conversations this morning, Marlene. Our first conversation is with the Nurses Association, all right? And they will be talking about the situation that we've been covering last week in respect of the resignation of nurses from the KHMH. That will be our first discussion this morning.
All right. And the second part of our show, we've had one quite a few times. Teacher Miguel Bonilla, he has been breaking down the math behind the proposed salary cuts, the proposed increment freeze, and now he's going to break down the new reality now that we know that the salary cuts will in fact proceed.
And of course, our third conversation in commemoration of World Blood Donor Day, we'll be looking at the importance of donating blood to save lives. So that's our roundup for the show this morning.
All right. So that's what we have in store for you. We're going to go ahead and take that first break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to the president of the Nurses Association of Belize about the nursing shortage. So please stay tuned.
Continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your smart broadband with smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
Thanks, Jen. Hey there, we know you have to head out to work shortly, but don't forget that you can stay tuned by watching us on our Facebook live stream. Find us at Open Your Eyes BC, and you can continue watching there. You can also download Facebook Watch on your streaming device, and you can watch at your own convenience.
And for all the behind-the-scenes fun, follow us on Instagram at OYE Belize. So,
find us
and follow us
today.
And welcome back. We begin our first conversation of the morning with our guest who is joining us via Zoom. We have with us the president of the Belize Nurses Association, none other than Darrell Spencer. Good morning, Mr. Spencer.
Good morning, Isaisani. Good morning, Marlene. Good morning, Belize.
Let's begin by painting a picture of the present situation where we are seeing that nurses are resigning from their profession here in Belize to seek their career elsewhere in the world. We're looking at the United Kingdom, for instance, we're looking at the United States, and of course Canada as the three main markets that they're looking to. Paint for us that picture so that we could get a proper understanding of what's taking place.
First of all, the movement of nurses throughout the world is something that has been happening since people can move around. Mm-hmm. So let's not try to get it twisted that it's something that's happening in the last year or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What has been happening though, and I'm glad that you brought that up. First, you mentioned UK, because most people believe that, oh, the nurses are going to the US, and that is not a truth. One of our biggest losers of nurses in Belize is, like you said, the UK and Canada, mm-hmm. where these are Commonwealth countries, and the transition then is easier. Mm-hmm. We lose quite a bit of staff to the UK and Canada. Everybody thinks, oh, the nurse disappeared, so she must be in the US, and that is not true. But being the three biggest takers of our brain from Belize, what happens every year, it gets a little worse. And in my 30 years in nursing in Belize, the past 3, 4, 5 years have been very significant in the movement of nurses away from Belize. And it's because of things that are happening in Belize, obviously.
Yeah. I spoke with a nurse on Friday, and it was sort of like an eye-opener to understand the way how things work in terms of them being able to renew their work permits on a annual or on a particular basis. And one of the things that stood out to me was the price point, if I can use that description, where in 1 year they are paying X amount, but to renew it the following time, it's almost like triple the same amount. And I could understand that in a pandemic situation where we were looking at salary cuts and all these other things, that there would be a higher cost to be able to renew a work permit. Has anyone within the association or elsewhere shared this experience with you?
All right, so the question here is, why should it be more expensive during the pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make much financial sense. When you have something like a pandemic coming around, then it is the sensible thing of the government to see how they can make life a little easier. If you raise it during the pandemic, you make it worse, because then the person already is a little bit cash strapped, and you're going to increase these fees for persons that you need to help you during the pandemic. So raising it at this point in time is totally ridiculous. This is not the point in time. When you are going to raise a fee is when you have enough personnel, or you have a flood of the market. So you're going to raise fee to try to control the amount of person, to try to decrease the amount of persons eligible to come, who would want to come. But we are short. So to raise it at this point in time is counterproductive.
Yeah. Now, the raise in the work permit charge was up last year. Why is it now becoming, they raised it last year to $3,000. Why is it becoming an issue this year?
All right, that question is very valid, and it's twofold. There's a part of the discussion that isn't being mentioned, and it goes by the Nurses Council. And rightfully so, the Nurses Council have stepped up on the continued issuance and renewals of temporary license in the country. This is a professional step, and this is not something that started because of COVID. This is something that we started from 2019. The staff were informed that, like the laws of Belize say, if you are going to be on the register in the Nurses Council, you must come to Belize. If you do not come from a country that shares reciprocity with our council, with our country, then you must sit and pass your license exam. That is not something that Darrell Spencer is saying, or any of the nurses are saying. That is the legal aspect of what's happening. So most of these persons that are leaving are persons who are not eligible for a renewal of their temporary permits. So they must, by the end of this year, sit and pass their regional nursing exam, the RENR that we call them. And so if these persons figure that they do not want to, or they cannot pass the exam, then this is a part of the reason behind why they are moving on.
But they would have been working without having taken this exam before.
Yes, and that is the problem. Because then you have a duly completed Belize nurse, and that Belizean nurse is not privy to a temporary permit to work until he or she passes their exam. So it is just fair to everybody. Again, you can put it to any license in any part of the world about anything. Yeah. If you have a group of persons that just comes in and does the job without having to sit any kind of qualifying examination to get a proper license, then those persons would basically flood the market, and your persons who are qualified trying to get a job won't have one.
But let's paint the correct picture here, because the World Health Organization has flagged many years ago the issue of the nursing shortage. People grow up, they have an interest in medicine, and that naturally puts them on the path of medical school to become a doctor versus a nurse. And so across the world, there are not enough nurses in the healthcare system. Wealthier countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, they have more attractive packages that any nurse in any part of the world would be attracted to go and work in that area. When you did your interview last week, you said that you felt if there were more jobs available in Belize, that we would keep our Belizean nurses. But is that true, Mr. Spencer? And while we acknowledge, one, that you're a specialized nurse, I don't want to miss that fact, which is already a small group in the country, and two, you and your colleagues have decided to dedicate decades in this country, not everyone has that inclination, especially if there's a better offer somewhere else.
And I agree. All right, so I am trying to say now, while I agree with that some persons would want to come out and go to greener pastures, as we preferably put it, there are hundreds of Belizeans educated in Belize that left because it's just getting too ridiculous to be here. You have quite a few, we have, to put it in perspective, in today's money, we have, I'd say, 50 or 75 nurses who have changed their mind just in the last month that this thing is not going to be practical for me to see. And they are young nurses who have a job and they want to stay. We have some Belizeans, look, hats off to the hundreds of Belizean nurses who have continued to give service to this country with all the deplorable conditions. And that is a big body of nurses. Yeah. And there is also another, out of every group, you might have, 20 or 35% that might stay in Belize. But we as a country, we are making it, our government is making it impossible for them to even take that option. And that is where I want the discussion to be. Why can't we discuss how to keep the few that that want to stay? Yeah. And if you're going to get a job today, and in the news industry, your CEO and your boss makes it impossible and put up a lot of ridiculous rules and change the fees, you are already qualified to go anywhere. So then the option of leaving becomes more practical, more obvious.
When I look at what transpired last week, for instance, where you have 5 nurses from the COVID unit itself who have tendered their resignation, I look at the fact that we are in a pandemic situation and COVID isn't going anywhere anytime soon, despite the ongoing campaign to vaccinate. But the point that I'm making is we can't afford to be losing nurses at a time like this where in one particular unit alone, 5 persons are leaving.
Yes. So ask yourself the question. Let's all ask ourselves the question. Why is it that the Minister of Health, why is it that the government of Belize failed to listen to the nurses? So the onus is being thrown on the shoulders of the nurses. But the nurses, look, nobody studies in their country, nobody gets qualified in their country to go to another country to work. How many people do that? From the time that these persons have invested time, money, energy in studying Belize, it's because they want to stay. Their first inclination is to stay, but the government constantly makes it impossible for them to stay. When I touch on that part with the amount of posts available to nurses, What are the chances of a nurse staying in Belize waiting for the government to create a post for him or her? It doesn't make any sense. So you have nurses working, again, little contracts here and there. They work private a couple of months, they have to work 2 jobs, they work some sessions with the government because they cannot be hired because the government from years immemorial have insisted to not increase the amount of posts available. That is a fact. And that doesn't make any sense because if I didn't have a committed job in Belize, I'd be gone too.
Yeah.
So how can you ask me to please stay in Belize and then you're going to further ask me to stay and wait until I decide to create a post for you so you can be gainfully employed?
Daryl, you know, if there's a silver lining to all that's happening, and I know it's hard to imagine, but the conversation is happening. And I'm glad that you point out that this is not a today issue. This has been a long time issue that now is reaching a crisis point where nurses who came to Belize for work are leaving and now leaving us in an even greater shortage. Tell me about the situation on the ground at the moment. We already knew that nurses who are employed, especially in the public sector, I don't know as much in the private sector, were already working longer hours than an average nurse should. That they had, in fact, the number of nurses that we do have, they aren't enough to serve. And also, we don't have sufficient specialized nurses, and even the registered nurses aren't enough, so more practical nurses are doing the work of the registered nurse.
That is true, and all that you said is completely true. I want to clarify one thing for you that you said, and it's a good question. When you look at a private institution in Belize, most of our private institutions are smaller in bed capacity. So you have 2 or 3 nurses working, let's say, in healthcare partners, and their bed capacity is 20. You have 2 or 3 nurses working in the public sector, and the bed capacity is 30. And so that is a big disparity where it comes here. We cannot force the private sector to mirror what's happening in the public sector. Yeah. But what we need to do is to encourage the government to realize that, look, for the amount of beds, the amount of patients, the classification of patients that you have nurses tending to, 2021 is not the time to have one nurse tending to 13 or 14 or 15 patients, which quite often happens. So the nurses on the ground in the public sector are becoming more burnt out, and they do not get that support from their supervisor nor from their ministry. And that is a big factor that is being thrown now, that nurses are just giving up. And people are saying, oh, the nurses are very selfish and they are very, look.
But help us understand though, the shortage that has existed, what's the amount of work that the nurses are doing now versus what they're supposed to be doing? Because you talk about patient to nurse ratio, and that's a key part of this.
Yes, and like I'm trying to say that the amount of work has always existed. However, like I congratulated the Belizean nurses who have stayed all these years. And I'm still supportive of those that left, because people have to do what they have to do for themselves and their families. The workload has not really increased, but the longer you take 5 pounds on your shoulder, the heavier that 5 pounds become. And that is the thing where it's culminating now into a frustration of that is being manifested by resignation and just giving up. Yeah. And that again adds to the cries from the nurse, because now you're tired, you're frustrated. COVID came around and we had to stretch over to 2 more departments when it comes to infectious cases and the COVID unit. The same amount of nurses were stretched a little more thin. So all of these things have been accumulating on the shoulders of the poor nurses in this country.
Darrell,
How easy is it? Sorry. How? So let's think of the graduating class of UB, and you have two levels. You have the associate level nurses that may be coming out, and now the bachelor's level. How easy is it for them to get a job? So the competitors are public healthcare, private healthcare, and international work.
How easy I am.
Yeah.
Easy is a word that shouldn't even be in that sentence. Because I tell you what, it is nowhere near easy. And this is what I'm saying. When you come out from UB, look at the class that is graduating from UB today. Let's say there are 40 of them. And let's say 40 of them sit and pass their license exam, or sat and pass, because the exam was earlier in this year. There is no jobs for them in the public sector. The need is there. Mind you, I'm not saying the need is not there. But they cannot be hired because the public service has done two things. One, they have said that they are not going to continue with all the contracts. And that was the only facility by which these nurses would have been hired, because the government does not have available posts for established positions. And again, so these two things, they are fighting against that nurse's decision to stay in the country. By the time that nurse gets a little contract somewhere, the nurse has already moved out of Belize.
So because I can't access work in the public health system, I could go...
Private. Private section is saturated.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know of any private institution who wants to find 5 nurses and can't find. The privates, they have already established more or less the amount of nurses they want to man their unit. So our private system in Belize is saturated. They have what they want. The problem is in the public system, that in a private institution, the board gets together and in 2 days they have a nurse. If they find a nurse and they want a nurse. It is different in the public system, where you have months, nurses who have applied for months, nurses who have applied for years in the public system, and the simple fact that there is not an available post make them frustrate and go away.
Let me ask you this, Darrell. What is the effect of this kind of an exodus, if I could use that term, on the competence of other nurses who are coming behind, who are either on their studies or training with some of the established ones that are now leaving? What is the effect of that?
That's a brain drain. And I will answer that in a little analogy. There was a story sometimes in India where the elephants began to kill the people that were uttering them around through getting the jobs done. You know, in those places they use elephants to get a lot of the hard labor done. And when they studied the whole thing, what was the problem was that because they had gotten away with all of the older bull elephants, so there was nobody left to teach the younger elephants coming up that they are not supposed to be killing the people. You see? Yeah. And that is what's happening in Belize. If you are coming out green from school and there is no way for a senior person to mentor, there's no mentorship, because all the seniors are going. Right now there is a big gap in nursing where all those persons in the middle that would have brought and transcended that experience up to the higher levels, they have disappeared. Those are the persons that went to the States 10, 15, 20 years ago. So people like myself are limited to now pass down knowledge to the juniors. What will happen? That is a question of serious.
So where are the mid-career nurses? You're saying those are the ones that are away, or they're also in private sector? Have they retired early or not pursuing nursing? Where are they?
They have gone to the private sector because the private sector wanted experienced persons. Because if you have two experienced nurses, those two experienced nurses can do you more proper patient care than if you have 3 or 4 juniors. So they have moved to the private sector, they have moved out of Belize. Some of them, some of us have stayed, but a very small amount.
Daryl, do you want to bring some clarity to the situation? Because one of the things when we hear your concerns, it sounds or it would appear to people that you are opposed to foreign nurses working in the country.
No. I don't. I will clear up that concern.
Yes.
I have no problem with anybody working in any country because let's be fair. If I have a problem with foreign nurses coming to Belize, then I should have a problem with my Belizean nurses leaving. And people have to go and find a job where they can. I have no opposition to that. What I have opposition to is when you're going to treat the Belizean nurse, homegrown, home trained, wants to stay home, you're going to treat them as lesser people. When it comes to what you're offering, that is my problem. I think if you want to allow foreigners to come in, the least you should do is to have the playing field equal.
Okay, stick up in there for a second and let me ask you this then. So we're looking at several scenarios. We have Nigerian doctors and nurses, we have the Filipinos, and we have the Cubans. What is the difference in terms of their arrangement versus the homegrown as you're speaking?
All right. So the minister mentioned some programs. And I'm talking about programs like the TAC program that was established years ago by another administration with Nigeria, and it has been established with Cuba, and not much so the Filipinos, because when the Filipinos came first, yes, they were on that program. But after that, shortly after, I think the Filipino program only lasted a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. But the other people, a Cuban comes on a delegation from their country, an arrangement made with the country and country of Belize. A Nigerian, we had some of those also. When we look at all that is given to these staff, I would want to be on that program. Because if somebody comes to me and tell me, Mr. Spencer, you are going to be in Belize, I am going to pay your rent, I am going to pay your light, I am going to pay your water, I am going to take you to and from work. Basically, I have no more bills. And I am going to give you $1,500 a month. Isani, Marlene, I do not take home $1,500 of a month from my salary after I've paid all these bills. So this is something that I'm not trying to say, excuse me, that I want them to decrease the emoluments for those persons, because I think those are rightfully due. But the cost of living for the Belizean nurse is exceedingly high compared to what they are making, and that is what we want to clarify. Look, it is too hard when I finish paying all of my bills. If I have $200 or $300 of my salary to put in a savings, I'm good. That is a good month. And for a professional who have been working for 30 years in this country, I think for me not to be able to do that is pitiful, is disheartening. So these programs, their arrangement that were made to subsidize the nursing and doctors numbers in the country. And at that, when they were started, they were, to me, that was the thing to have been done. But meanwhile, we could have been making more allowances available for more facilities. I'm not going, I hate to use the word allowances, but more facilities for an easier transition and an easier life for the nurses from Belize, so that we could have now been carrying our own country's nursing problems.
It's a tough spot, though. I mean, if you look at it from the outside, where Belize needs to attract the professionals, the nurses from other countries. Even if we add on the recent graduates, as you noted, to get experienced persons to kind of fill the gap within the hospitals, you still need to attract foreign nurses. And we're competing with with countries that can offer a lot more. And I mean, make no mistake, for the Belizean nurses to say as well, it's the same competition. From the Nurses Association standpoint, what is your proposed solution, short term, because now we're facing a crisis in the shortage, medium term and long term?
All right, you'll notice I'm going to shake my head just now.
I can't see, but tell me why.
So, I will tell you why. Because every year goes by and then we come the next year and discuss a short term. This is a long-standing problem.
Yes.
So if we had solved it every year that had gone by so far, we would not be in this position today. And if we continue kicking the pan down the road, we will be in this same thing, discussing another short-term fix in 5 years. And that is the problem. When do we as a country come together and decide, look, this thing needs to be solved and we have to start solving it today. To create another short-term, I would agree that today we need a short-term fix.
Yeah.
And that is just common sense. But what do we do? In the meantime, we could have already initiated a discussion, and that is where our minister has failed us, or government has failed us. And I'm not blaming Mr. Shebat. I am blaming Mr. Shebat. I am blaming Mr. Marin. I am blaming Mr. Koyi and all of the ministers of health that have been. Because everybody comes to the room and kicks the pan down the road. What we need to do is to not only attract, because if you just attract, easier for you find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But every year you have to change them because you got no commitment, you got no retention program. And that is the problem facing this country. And it has been facing this country since 1991 when I started. When are we going to stop kicking the pan down the road? I think today should be the perfect day to start.
Yeah. And that's why I said, if there's a silver lining to the situation, is that this conversation is happening and it's happening publicly. So you understand that there is a short-term solution that needs to be found, but what you're saying is you want the conversation to get serious about how we address the root of the problem. What do you think would help in keeping nurses in Belize? All the Belizean trained nurses who came up through UB, or even those who are away, maybe to come back. What do you think it would take?
All right, so an address was made, I think it was in 2012, 2014, thereabout, by Dr. Parks. She had already has now resigned and retired, and moved on. And in that discussion, what started, they realized that a nurse with a bachelor's got way less than anybody else with a bachelor's in this country.
Wow.
These are the things that need to be addressed. A registered nurse in their professional status makes way less than other professionals. They make less than some of the non-professionals in this country. And those are the things that need to be addressed. I'm 100% sure that Belize as a country cannot compete solely on salaries. That is a fact. I mean, I don't see where, and I think it is stupid for a nurse in Belize who wants to stay in Belize to say, you know what, I want to be making 40 or 50 US dollars an hour, because that not happen, and only that will make I stay. But Marlene and Mr. Caetano, you could make their salaries competitive, at least in the Belizean market. You can not refuse to give the nurse or the doctor or the attendant that are on shift a sensible cup of coffee or tea, if possible, man. You can afford to, this person is not going home for a lunch. Give them a sensible meal. How much it is to provide a sensible meal for somebody? If I cook home, I know a meal costs me less than $5. So things like these. Give the people them the materials they need. Do you know how many times it frustrates us that you're trying to treat your patient and the medications that you need are not available? The materials that you need are not available. The equipment that you need to get the job done right are not available. And we keep seeing the ministries and the government wasting millions and millions of dollars on idle things. And then they say that, oh, your health is important. You're not acting as if though the health of the nation is important. You're acting as if though the streets are important. You're acting as if though the buildings are important. You're acting as though the comfort of your CEOs and the ministers are important. Your actions say that those are the things that you address as important. And the real things that are important, the education and the health of your nation, you neglect.
All right. And just, you know, so we can ensure that this is something that we recognize. When we talk about nursing shortage, this has a direct impact in quality of care.
Of course.
Whether or not there are sufficient nurses is one thing, but if nurses are working very long hours, the likelihood or the probability of human error becomes higher.
Yes and no. I will say yes because the studies have shown that yes, we need a break or you burn out. That we need 2 or 3 or 4 days a week to rest, that's another discussion. And in other countries, nurses have been allowed to work 2 jobs to make it. In Belize, we cannot do that because, again, the government came in and they cut the overtime. So now I cannot even extend my rested hours in trying to subsidize an already small salary. So that is a big discussion again. And
one last question on that, because we know that there's a reduced hour for public servants, and as a nurse that works in the public sector, you can explain that for me. So with 5 hours less, I know there's a question about overtime that you need clarity on. Do you want to explain that one?
So let me ask you from like a maths standpoint. Let's not look at the nurses shortage. Mathematically, you're paying me $1,000 a month for 40 hours a week. We needed to do overtime at that point in time to cover the department. So 40 hours, you actually needed 60 boot hours per nurse last year, right? You come to the table and you say, you know what, I need to cut salaries. So you cut their salaries, which that is the onus of they can do that if they want, obviously. And then now, to compensate for lost wages, you propose that you're going to cut 5 hours from the work week, which again, that is good. I support that. If you cut salaries and you can compensate with less hours, you're basically making the same wage per hour as a personnel. But what does that do to the department that is short already? Your overtime now will begin from 35 hours. So for those same 20 hours a month that you used to pay me, let's say $10 an hour, you are going to pick that up as an establishment as overtime now and pay me for time and a half for those 20 hours. How is that sensible?
Yeah, valid point.
So from a mathematical standpoint, the government is working against itself.
There clearly needed to be, or I would say from hearing what you're saying, there needs to be some specialized attention as to what is going to happen specifically with healthcare workers and the nurses as well.
And pardon, Marlene, but I don't think that should happen, because we are public officers and we cannot encourage that discussion to, oh, sometimes you will be treated like public officers and sometimes you won't. The government needs to make up its mind. Are we going to be treated as public officers, or are you going to continue to abuse us under the disguise of essential services? Because we have been abused from the public service under that disguise for years. In other little ways.
Has the Nurses Association reached out to the ministry to be a part of the conversation on the solution?
I'll tell you like this. Since November of last year, after the election, we have tried to reach out to the Ministry of Health, and they have refused any conversation with us.
As the Nurses Association?
As the Nurses Association.
Okay.
We have gotten calls from a contact of the minister, like I think a month and a half ago. And it is disgraceful to say that I got that call like almost 5 o'clock or around 6 o'clock Friday evening. And we felt insulted as an association that you will call us Friday evening, Friday night, the close of the work week, to want a meeting Saturday morning, when we have been asking for a meeting with you for months. It's like...
But the Deputy Director of Health Service is the head nurse.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. And have you communicated or liaised with her?
Well, from the association standpoint, we have communicated with her on the grounds that we both share seat on the Nurses Council. Okay. But as a meeting between the ministry and the association, we haven't had that meeting. We are still waiting for that meeting, because like I was saying, even at that time when they had asked for us to meet with them on Saturday, which our executive is all over the country. So, and we can't afford to tell the nurse, you know what, you don't plan your weekend, but the minister needs to speak to us, so we are going to fly you from wherever point this meeting will be had. All right. We offered them to, look, this is not sensible. We cannot meet with you on such short notice as a complete executive even. So we put it to them, you know, we can see you anytime after 10 o'clock Monday morning. That would have been in 2 or 3 days. And up to today, the ministry has not responded to accept that meeting. So did they really want a meeting, or they just wanted to make a proposition so that when the discussion comes up, they can say, oh, we reached out to the association and they refused? All right. Because since then, the minister or any of his personnel have failed to communicate with the association by phone call, by email, by all letter through the service of the government of Belize. None of that. What does that tell me? That tells me that they don't respect us as even staff.
Well, we do hope that there is the possibility for that meeting to take place, and we appreciate you shedding light from the nurses' point of view and the association's point of view about the current situation, and definitely about looking at the long-term solutions to this issue. Thank you very much, Daryl, and continue to stay safe.
Thank you guys for having us as the association. Enjoy your day.
You're welcome.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we'll be breaking down the salary cuts for teachers. So please stay tuned.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
The vaccine is now available. We here at R&G Life encourage you to take the vaccine. Belize, it's time to roll up our sleeves.
I'm rolling up mine because I know what COVID can do to families.
Because I want to go back to the way things were.
I'm rolling up mine so that I'm able to do music again.
Because I want to protect my family.
Things are slowly getting back to normal. The new normal, which includes getting vaccinated. Take the opportunity to get vaccinated at the R&G Life Wellness Clinic Day on Friday, June 18th. We will also have blood pressure, cholesterol, and other screenings available. Get vaccinated. Roll up for Believe.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
And welcome back. We continue our show this morning by getting into our second conversation of the day, and this is with a teacher from Mount Carmel High School. He's none other than Miguel Bonilla, and he's here to break down for us the various pay scales as it regards the teachers' salaries. Good morning, Mr. Bonilla.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So last week, the government put out the new pay scales, and so we're in the process of trying to understand who are the ones that are affected and what classes, so to speak, that are being affected. Share with us, first of all, your cursory look at what is taking place at the point where the government had issued the scales, the new scales.
Well, I had worked out the scales for more than a month now, so I knew more or less what my pay would look like and what my colleagues' pay would look like. And for some people, especially those who have worked for more than 20 years and would be at the peak of the scale, it's a disastrous decision for them, for the government to cut them. They're losing out $12,000 per annum, $12,000 to $15,000 per annum. I'm quite sure that on top of getting the cut, they will be getting taxed. So they're losing a lot. For people who are starting to move upward in the social, what you call it, in the social ladder, like myself, well, this is certainly a big slap on the face.
Let's look at your situation. Perhaps you can share with us how the new pay scale affects your ability to be able to meet the cost of living and your associated expenses as a teacher.
Okay. For me to do this, I would need to project my screen with your permission. Okay. So I'll share my screen. So what you're seeing here is my new net income. It's $2,086 per month. Now you might be saying, hey, but that's decent. You can actually live off it. Well, let me tell you the situation, because while the government looks at the figures and looks at everything in a very, what do you call it, like everything are numbers, we down here, we are the ones who are living this reality. So let me break down to you. As it stands today, I have a mortgage, and here it's $950 because I just recently built a house. My whole family did not own a house, so I'm the first one to be a house owner. So that's $950. For bills, that's about $300 per month. Sorry, $300 per month. Then another expense is food. Let us say I can feed my family for breakfast with $5. That includes 4 adults and 2 children. $5 I will use, and this is my new budget to give them breakfast. I will give them for lunch $15, and for dinner that's another $5. That's $25 per day. In 30 days, that's $750. So for food, I'm spending now $750. And then I still have to buy soap, deodorant, and other things. You know, the mundane things. But just right here, I'm already having a leftover of $86.57. That's what I have for me to buy my soap, for me to buy maybe the toothpaste, things that are mundane.
Yeah, your household items,
Right. And I want to share this because since it's a personal experience. My mother suffers from glaucoma, so let's put it in there, the medication. The medication comes to a net of about $70 per month. So I'm not gonna sacrifice her medication. I'd rather not bathe for a day, you know? So $70. And so I'm left with $16.57. Now, why am I going over all of this? Let me stop sharing. Because the reality is that while the government only sees 10%, and that's because I have a bachelor's degree with a diploma in education methodology. Now I'm on the end where I'm still well off in comparison to my fellow teachers. There are some people earning $1,800, especially in Toledo, which is apparently a forgotten district. Culturally, they have 10 people in their household one sole income, yes, they do a little bit of agriculture, $1,800 to cover for all of them. Now you come and reduce the salary for them because, well, it's only 10%. But one, it's only 10% in your calculation, but the reality down here is that now we don't have enough to live a life with dignity. Especially if you're a person like me who's trying to move up, own a house, and starting to own little things here and there. So how will I come?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop there.
I wanted to just get in on that because it's part of what, and Miguel, thank you, because you've really stepped forward through all of this to just help people understand the math behind it. We talk about the 10%, or we talk about teachers of public servants, but understanding the reality, at least from one perspective, helps to bring clarity. But what you're saying is that very often when we say 10%, in your case about $200, in some people's case it's about $100, and it can be anywhere in between. Now, that oftentimes is all the disposable income that one has after expenses. And with that removed, so goes the income to buy some of the necessities to survive. Is that what you're trying to explain? Now, from your conversations with your colleagues, tell us a bit about what kind of plans, how do you, the salary cuts are going to happen. What do you do to adjust? Or can you adjust?
Okay, thank you for that question. So one of the things that, how will I adjust? I'll tell you about me first, and then I'll tell you about what my colleagues are doing. My father is 75 years old. He's 75 this year. And he decided that he's gonna go out and do some more taxi, drive the taxi again. Of course, he doesn't own a car. So that little money, maybe he will make $200, $300 extra a month. That will be what will be used to adjust, because my father and mother, they are with me. So that's what will be used to fill in the gap. That is one more taxi driver out there, and that takes away from because there's a lot of people who have it worse than me, and I have to accept that. And that extra taxi driver away takes away from the main pool of people who really need it right now. Just to compensate. Now, my colleagues, what have they been doing? Recently, I've had some of my colleagues send me a message, Mr. Bonilla, would you like to buy barbecue? Mr. Bonilla, would you like to buy dukunu? I'm making some. Would you like to buy soup? Maybe on the weekends, to fill in that gap. Now, what the macroeconomics of this will do is that there's 15,000 people who will be, more than 15,000 people who will be getting a cut. They will find alternative ways to fill in that gap. Those alternative ways might be a direct competition for those people who have been...
Who rely on that.
Right, so the market share for the common Belizean, for the fudge selling Belizean, changes, because now we are entering the market with our product. And because we tend to have a little bit more idea on how to use social media and all of this, I'm not saying that the average Belizean doesn't. What I'm saying is that now we are taking market share from them, which didn't used to happen. And so it is going to have that ripple effect in our community. And I've seen some Facebook Lives selling food and also selling clothing. So I'm already starting to see it. And right now, that's because we haven't gotten, in practice, we haven't gotten the cut. But now, 6 months from now, we will start seeing that the average Belizean will be the one that will be affected directly. Their businesses.
Now, you bring up such an interesting point. You know, I think when you talk to small business owners, they definitely talk of the influx of competition that has come in place and how it has affected them. And you know, it's important that people are able to make a living or earn extra if that's what needs to be done. But it's a very realistic scenario that you just painted. Miguel, you know, having had multiple conversations, just for you, you said that your dad is going back to work. I mean, are you finding some of your coworkers in really dire situation? Or are they just kind of figuring out ways to adapt?
Certainly, yes. One of the things that I've come to realize is that the ones that will really get, I saw it here at my school, that will get punched right in the nose, weren't the most vocal. They were just like, okay, it's inevitable. But some of them, they will have to take out their children from school, from maybe they're trying to move upward in, you know, in the social ladder also. And they have to take out their children from school. Maybe 1 or 2 are going to UB. So take them out of school and just to make sure that they have enough to eat and maybe go to school at some other time. Now that sets those children back a few years, but that's how they're trying to do. And then when it comes to dire situations, we have some colleagues who really have big families. I spoke to someone down in Toledo, and that's why I shared the Toledo scenario. They say they buy data, they have to travel through mountains, and well, the person says, okay, I have 7 family members, adult family members, depending on this. I'm yet to complete my bachelor's degree. This is seriously going to affect me. So we do have people who, and then there's also that little percentage in the bell curve, which have it well off. 2 teachers maybe in a family. Well, they're better off, but we do have certain people who are already marginalized, and this will just be the nail on their coffin.
So what about cutting down expenses?
Sure. I think that that is one of the approaches that I think everyone is doing. Yeah, as a person, what I've done, I've disconnected lights because we have LED lights here at home. And instead of having maybe 2, I will only use 1. That's how I think that I will reduce the bill. And let me just reiterate something there. You see, I'm going to cut expenses and I'm going to find a way to survive. And no amount is too little if I can avoid the expense. I think that government should move in with that mentality also, because whenever they mention anything about reducing allowances, they say, "Oh, it's inconsequential." That's their response. But if you are really fixated in a long-term solution, we must cut down on certain expenses. I'm not saying eliminate, because obviously if they're in power and they got elected and everything, then it merits that they get some sort of allowance for all of their stuff. But what I'm saying is we should all cut down without saying, oh, it's too little, it won't make an impact. It will. Drop by drop, you can fill up a bucket.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying a collective approach to being able to curtail on expenses.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Not only us, the sacrificial lambs. Yeah.
All right. Well, that kind of paints a very clear picture for us, Miguel. With that, thanks for having shared with us what the average teacher will now be facing in terms of the consequence of the 10% salary cut.
Yes. Can I just say something before I go?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. It becomes very apparent that we have been a little bit vociferous on this issue. And certainly the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, is getting all the heat, but it's becoming increasingly apparent that it might not have been him behind this idea of a cut. I just wanted to throw in there. And I think the person who is responsible for making all of these suggestions should step forward and face the teachers, give us an explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Miguel, we do appreciate you joining us this morning, and the fact that you have been kind of a face for the teachers in speaking out on how it can be affected. People don't like disclosing their salaries, but you've done so openly just so the public can understand the impact. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you too.
All right.
We go to our commercial break, and when we return, it's to have a discussion on World Blood Donor Day. Stick around.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
With the touch of a finger, we can easily unlock our phones and securely gain access to our data. This technology is called biometrics, and the Social Security Board is introducing fingerprint recognition to make transactions and handling of your sensitive data secure, fast, accurate, and convenient. Is your identity safe? Fingerprint recognition will keep your Social Security record secure and confidential while making your access fast and easy. It protects your identity. Is your name a common one? Fingerprint recognition uses your unique characteristics, ensuring your hard-earned benefits go directly to you, the rightful owner. Tired of all the paperwork? Fingerprinting makes this hassle-free. Your convenience and your information security is our priority. Fingerprint recognition coming soon. Social Security at your fingertips.
It's a fact that with Smart, you get truly unlimited everything. Only with Smart, you get unlimited data anytime, while with the other guy, it's only double data on weekends. With unlimited data every day with Smart, there's no need to wait. So, it's a fact that our unlimited plans beat the competition. Stop being measured and told when to use your data and get unlimited talk, text, and data. Experience the true unlimited plans with Smart. That's a fact. Make the switch and live smart.
Why should you wear your mask? To protect myself. My friends, my family, and others. I wear my mask because I love my grandparents. With so many reasons to wear a mask, we continue to advise persons to wear a face mask properly, covering both nose and mouth. Together, we can keep Belize COVID-19 safe.
So, stay tuned. Thanks, Jen. Hey there, we know you have to head out to work shortly, but don't forget that you can stay tuned by watching us on our Facebook live stream. Find us at Open Your Eyes BC, and you can continue watching there. You can also download Facebook Watch on your streaming device, and you can watch at your own convenience.
And for all the behind-the-scenes fun, follow us on Instagram at OYE Belize. So,
find us
and follow us
today.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
And we're back, and we're moving into our final conversation for today, a very important one, as today, June 14th, is commemorated as World Blood Donor Day. We have with us lab technologist at the Northern Regional Hospital, Magnolia Pot. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so let's just dive into the topic. Blood Donor Day is a day that we talk about the importance of donating blood. How are we doing in Belize in our blood donation?
Do I have to answer that question right now?
Yes, let's start with that.
Good morning. Well, Belize always have a shortage of blood. That is to the point. We always run out of blood.
Why is that?
I see this what we're talking, that was it. I didn't want to start this way because it's kind of negative, but it's actually the issue that is happening here in Belize.
Yeah.
We have at the hospitals we have our blood banks, and at Central Lab there is a one where that is the blood bank. So people don't usually come and volunteer out of their hearts, you know. They always come and donate for somebody that needs the blood, for a relative, for a friend. So we don't usually have that continuous flow of blood. Whenever we have a blood donor, we have to give it to his or her patient that needs the blood.
Yeah, yeah. That's the key part to talk about. So there are two types of blood donors. When there's an appeal that we see on the media or a friend calls us and says, please donate blood for me, that's replacement blood. That means we are putting what they're using. But what we need are volunteer donors. Can you explain the difference?
Okay. Well, the replacement donors are the donors that come and donate for somebody that needs the blood, maybe on that day, maybe on the following day for surgery, for transfusion, for dialysis. So the problem is when they come and they donate for those patients, then we have to have that blood supply readily for that patient, because when a replacement donor comes, it doesn't necessarily mean that his patient will get his or her blood. It means that I have a bag of blood ready for your patient, and you will replace that bag that I'm using for your patient at that specific time.
Yeah.
When it comes to a volunteer blood donor, then the donor comes in and donates without a name. He doesn't want for a patient, he doesn't want for a relative. He just comes and donate it. So when this happens, we know we have that bag, we have that blood unit extra. So that is the kind of donor that we need, so that we don't run out of blood. Because sometimes when we have replacement donors, the donor comes in and they replace one unit, but in case of an emergency and his patient needs another blood unit, then where will I get it from if they only donated one? But because of a few volunteer blood donors that we still have, then I can supply that patient in emergency another unit.
Yeah.
Is there a campaign that you guys are embarking upon or presently undertaking that would see persons come in to donate blood?
Well, today is World Blood Donors Day, and Orange Walk will take it up until the weekend, because until Friday, because when they come in and they donate, the donors come in and donate, sometimes the issue that we have here at Northern Regional is because we don't have the blood bank as they have it in Belize City.
Okay.
Here at the hospital, we have from 8 to 10, we tend to our outpatients. So until after 10, then we can tend to our blood donors. So anybody that comes after 10 and we have finished with our patients, then we will take that blood donor. But if we cannot, then we have to tell the blood donor to come back until 1 o'clock for donating blood. And because of that, usually it causes a little setback for the donor, because sometimes they have taken time off their work. We understand that. And sometimes they don't have the time to come back, and that really causes another issue with when it comes to here at the Northern Regional Hospital. But we're trying, and we have tried to receive all our donors we can and tend to them early so that they can go back at work or go back to their busy schedule. And
wow. Is that common at other regional hospitals too? Because, I mean, in Belize City, there's the blood bank, so you have a separate place. But with the other regional hospitals, it's the same?
I think it is the same, you know. It's the same situation with the other hospitals, because the problem is we don't have the blood bank available. Well, we don't have the lab here at the Northern Regional Hospital and the other labs available as a blood bank. Now, in Belize City at Central Medical Lab, the difference is that there is one department only for blood bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this causes a little setback for us here at the Northern Regional Hospital, and it might cause a setback for those at the other hospitals. Yeah. But as I said, we try to tend to all our donors possible.
Now, is there a specific blood type? We're looking now at literally a storage area of blood in the hospital. Now, what are some of the blood types that we are always in need of?
Okay. Usually we would ask for O positive, and the most precious, well, I said all the blood groups are important, but the most precious one is the O negative. Why the O negative? Because when there's an O negative, a patient with an O negative group, we cannot give any other blood than O negative. And for the past years that I've been working here at the lab, I have encountered that the people that are the most wanted are O negative. Maybe because it's really rare to find an O negative. And that is why at the end of the day, when a patient comes to emergency, we see it as an emergency because we don't have O negative. Oh my God. And the O negative blood is also the universal donor. The O negative can be given in case of an emergency. It can be given to O positive, A positive. Let's say we have a gunshot and at that minute they want an O negative. They want to stop they help the patient with blood, then we readily give one O negative blood to the patient. Okay. But if we do have patients with O negative, then we have to have an O negative on standby.
The question you just raised a very important point. So when somebody has an emergency, you're talking a car crash, a stabbing, a gunshot. Those type of trauma victims, how much blood do they use just in their first treatment at emergency?
That will be, let's say a patient with a gunshot or a car crash, as you said, usually we would give 2 to 3 units. Here in Orange Walk, chop wounds are very frequent, so we would end up giving 1 to 3 units of blood for severe cases.
So once those are given to the person in treatment, how is it recovered?
Well, until, let's say the patient stays at Northern Regional Hospital, then we talk to the surgeons or to the doctors and explain that they need to replace the units of blood that they have used. In case they needed another, if they need another unit, then we will release the other unit, but on the arrangement that they have to replace the units that they have used.
Yeah. And if the person passes?
Well, we have lost those bloods already.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not
we can't get it back. See, these are the little things that the public don't know out there. And they believe that when they come to the blood bank, they expect us to give them blood when we cannot. We do not have blood because we have to have units on standby in cases of emergency. And when you have, let's say you have an elective, this has been one of our issues here at Northern Regional Hospital and maybe at the other. Whenever you have a surgery, let's say a doctor gives you a date and a time for a surgery, the doctor will tell you to get your donors, to get your bloods available. So you have to come and donate before your time so we can have that blood ready for you for your surgery. But people, they believe that they will come and do it the day before the surgery, and then that puts us into issues because then we have to use somebody else's blood to cover for that surgery because we have to have a unit of blood on standby for that patient to go into operating theater.
So how do you explain to people, because we always get people complaining with the frustration that they have to try to get donors and donors are hard to get for replacement blood. But what you're saying is if you allow for blood to be used for elective surgery or for things that aren't immediate emergencies, then we will eventually run out of our blood stock.
Exactly. See, when it comes to an elective surgery, even we have issues even with the doctors here and the surgeons, because then if it's an elective surgery and your patient hasn't donated blood before that surgery, I am so sorry, I cannot allow you to admit your patient or go for surgery because the patient doesn't have a unit of blood. Sometimes they think we are cruel, we just don't want to admit, we don't want to allow the blood to get used, but then that puts us in a situation. So the first thing I would like the public to understand, if you have an elective surgery, come and donate the blood 1 week before your date or 2 weeks before your date. That would be perfect because then by that time your unit would be cleared and then maybe we can use your unit for your patient. But at the same time, let's say we have a maternity case, because remember, maternity is another different emergency.
Yeah.
When we have a maternity case and the pregnant mother has to go into C-section and this patient hasn't donated blood, I mean, we have to release a blood unit because we cannot allow a mother and a baby to be in danger.
Yeah.
So our issues here at the lab is we have to decide which one is really emergency and which one is not.
Yeah.
And I believe that all of the cases that come to Northern Regional are emergency, but we still have to play around with the unit. There has been in times when we have only stayed with 4 units of blood here at Northern Regional Hospital. And trust me, it's not easy. It's not easy to play around with 4 units of blood because in cases of emergency, I have no idea what we would do.
And
but we have reached to that situation.
And if you're looking at a car crash, for example, multiple people, that's like the minimum amount of blood they'll need. If it's a very, very serious emergency, which car crashes usually cause, you'll need more than that.
So these are the little situations that we have to find solutions to. Sometimes we would call the blood bank in Belize City and we would ask for plasma, we would ask for platelets because we don't have here in Orange Walk. And sometimes when we know that we are short in blood, then we would call the blood bank and ask them if they have any available units that we can borrow, and then we have to replace it back to the bank.
Is this situation unique to only the Northern Regional or the Northern Region, or is it something that is perhaps across the country that we're facing?
I don't think so. I think it is a thing that it is right across the country, because even at Central Medical Lab, there is a shortage sometimes because we don't have donors. We need people that can come out and just donate out of their hearts every 3 months.
Yeah.
That would be, if we had volunteer blood donors like that, we would have a perfect world because then we don't have to stress out ourselves with who is gonna get blood and who's not.
So, and that's the message. That's what World Blood Donor Day is. So we talked about all the reasons why. And there are people who are willing to give blood because when it comes to replacement, they show up.
Yes.
So it's, if they would just show up every 3 months after that and keep on donating towards the blood bank or the stock of blood that's needed in the event of any emergency. So how does one become a volunteer donor? Where do they go? What criteria do they have to meet?
Okay, to become a volunteer blood donor, first of all, you have to come here at the lab and we will screen you. First of all, if you're a male, you have to have 14 or more on your HB. Female, it has to be 12 or more for you to donate. Then you don't, no tattoos for the past 1 year. You have to be healthy, not on medications, no smoking, no drinking, and the list goes on for the screening. But those are the most important ones.
Yeah.
Then we take out the blood and then we send it to be screened at the blood bank.
Yeah.
If everything's come out, if everything like HIV, syphilis, hepatitis B, all of the screening, malaria, Chagas, then if those come out negative, then you can be considered a donor.
Yeah.
And then if you come and donate every 3 months, then you're considered a volunteer blood donor because then you come for just voluntarily.
Yeah.
You don't come for specifically for somebody.
Just to help build that stock of blood in the country.
Yeah. Then that would help a lot. That would help a whole lot because just remember that with 1 unit of blood you can save 3 lives because you have the packed cell, you have plasma, and you have platelets that we can take out of that unit of blood.
Yeah. And not only that, if I am a voluntary blood donor, and let's say, this year I gave 3 donations, and I end up needing blood, I don't have to go get replacement donors because I've already made a deposit.
Exactly. When you become a volunteer blood donor, then you have that privilege of coming to the, let's say you have an emergency, and you come to the hospital and you need blood, then you don't have to run and get donors because you're a volunteer blood donor. Then we take that into consideration and we supply you with the units that you need.
Yeah.
Although we still ask you to replace it sometimes when there's a shortage.
Yes, of course. Now, what do you say to people? I mean, I think there are people out there who show up when replacement blood is needed. They hear of a loved one in a dire situation and they make the time and they go out. It's just getting them to go back more frequently. What do you say to them to move from becoming that one-time donor to a consistent voluntary donor?
Whenever they come and donate, Marlene, here at the blood bank, and I'm the one dealing with the donor, I would try to emphasize that just the way how they came today, they can come back in 3 months' time. And then they will notice that they have actually saved somebody's life without somebody asking for it. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, when we have our blood donors day, we usually give our voluntary blood donors their certificate as a token of appreciation that they come to the hospital and they donate. So to all those people out there that would like to come and donate voluntarily, and just do it out of your heart, just come and you will save people's life without them asking you. And to me that feels that I will be satisfied with knowing that I can do that.
That's right. I think that's such a great way to close off, that people just have to, you know, we're always looking for stories of heroes. The people who go in and give blood, they're saving lives without even asking for who. So we do hope that more people take up the challenge and go into the blood bank or to the regional hospital in their area, take out, what, 20 minutes of their time?
It's 20 minutes, 20 minutes the most.
And just that one donation every 3 months, that one donation can save up to 3 lives. Magnolia, thank you for painting the picture for us. Of course, we do have a blood drive that's coming up on Friday that we should tell people about. Well, there's one today and there's one on Friday.
Yeah, that well, here at our regional, we're receiving our blood donors today as normal, but on Friday we plan to have our blood drive. So if you would like to come and donate voluntarily, you're welcome to come and donate.
All right, and that drive that we put up there, that one is for Central Region, and that's at the blood bank here in Belize, just in case viewers were concerned there, confused there. But Magnolia, thank you so much, and best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break, and we'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
Dwayne Moody, Isani Cayetano, Andrea Polanco, Paul Lopez. Your News 5 Belize teams do whatever it takes, go wherever they need to go, so you can catch the story wherever you are, whenever you want, on whatever device. Channel 5 Belize on television, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, because news is now everywhere, all the time. And so are we.
2020 taught us the importance of being connected to the virtual world, and NextGen is here to keep its commitment to you. Even if you're physically apart, NextGen keeps you digitally connected.
Okay everyone, thank you for following me today.
NextGen provides more than just an internet plan. They provide service plans that support all your online needs. Sign up today and get your NextGen's ultra high-speed internet service. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
Smart continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your smart broadband with smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
And we're back.
Our first conversation this morning in terms of getting some perspective on the situation that is affecting the healthcare system in terms of the departure of nurses from Belize to other parts, I think was enlightening to understand exactly what the challenges are that both local our homegrown nurses are facing, as well as those who come to Belize to further their career in the field. I think Darrell Spencer was very clear in how he was able to explain to us what those situations are and why, while he may not necessarily like the idea of nurses leaving, he can understand why.
And he, I have to say that he brought a lot of clarity to the conversation this morning as well, because at the first response, when we only hear tidbits of the nurses' response, it was almost that they were against the recruitment of foreign nurses. But he's very clear to say that he recognizes the immediate need, but that there has to be a start of a conversation of how we address this long term. Now, the nursing shortage is not unique to Belize, and the nursing shortage is something that will take a very innovative plan as to how you are able to, it's brain drain, but brain drain in a critical area that the people are necessary to ensure life. And so this is also, it's one more challenge in the healthcare sector that has to be addressed. But as I said earlier, the conversation is starting, and I do hope that there can be some creative solutions. I know there was a scholarship that was offered recently to have more nurses trained in Belize, but it's also ensuring that those nurses then become a part of, especially the public health system, and that they're treated fairly in that process as well.
So that was an interesting conversation to start our show off with this morning. And of course, what was equally interesting was the breakdown of the salary cut and the new pay scales that are in effect. And to look at it from one teacher's point of view and have him break down his expenses against the 10% reduction, I think it kind of sends the message home.
Yeah, and I think it was a very realistic budget for people, where it may be a mortgage, it could be rent, it could be, the utilities, the cost for sending the children to school. All of these things are expenses that people incur on a monthly basis. I think, when he outlines the situation of how even trying to supplement your income then has an effect on other people in the business as well. In other words, as he pointed out with his dad, who goes back to being a taxi driver, that's one less taxi fare for the taxi men who are working already. And so it definitely shows kind of the ripple effect that is going to happen with this move. And of course, we are grateful to Miguel for always being open and willing for sharing this information and helping viewers understand the situation. And then, once again, another concern in the healthcare sector, except this one, this one falls directly on us as citizens of this country.
The shortage of blood.
We need blood. We need blood in the blood banks. We need it not just when you're asked to go in to give for a person specifically. We need you to just go to the blood bank and donate the blood just because. It's like you're having, it's like you're stocking up your fridge. You can't just keep on replacing. It never actually gets full. You have to go and just put something in each time so that you can have that full fridge that you want with beers, whatever it is that you're doing. So it's so important for us to understand that we have the capacity to be able to help that particular situation with blood shortage, and also knowing that you help to save somebody's life, multiple people's lives, because one unit, one donation saves 3 lives.
And as we celebrate or commemorate World Blood Donor Day, we remind our viewers as well that there are 2 drives that are taking place this week. One at the Central Health Region, and of course one at the Northern Regional in Orange Walk. So if you want to give, this is your opportunity to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, but that's all the time we have for today. Remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy the day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.